I couldn't tell you when Firehound got into step with us. I have no clue. That wolf is a ghost. Oh, no, scratch that. I can tell you for a fact that most ghosts wish they were as stealthy as he is. I sure wish they would shut up more. Anywho, almost the entire pack was together again, running with wild abandon as swiftly as injuries allowed, back towards our home and the protection of our setmates. But I was concerned about Gloria. I turned my head to the white wolf, my emotions clear on my face. I did not need to ask. I lost track of her after the house where you killed the Fomori. She took on 3 of them in there. I feigned weakness, made sure they could smell my blood, as I waddled in with a hint of a limp. 2 fell for it and came after me. The one that stayed seemed to be their warrior. I don't think that house is still there. I'm fairly sure I heard it crashing down as I was losing my pursuers, and if I know Gloria, she made sure the debris fell on the other one. That did track, but I slowed down nonetheless. We knew these parts of the woods like the back of our hands. If Gloria made it out, she would know to pass by here to catch up, and I doubt the dancers would dare come this close to the set. So this was as good a time as any to explain just a few things to the cub. Jane, I said as I turned to her, this next part is going to get weird. Oh good, because everything had been so normal up until now. We're a few steps away from entering werewolf territory. A couple of things are going to happen and you need to understand them. Gaia created us. She's everything. And she is dying. Creatures out there, like the Fomori and the dancers, they're trying to kill her. A critical element of that war are locations called cairns. They're very rare. They usually only bloom in places of some significance attuned to strong emotions or concepts. When these elements combine in the right way, and Gaia wills it, it turns into a place of power. It can be a particular alignment of stones, artificial or not, like Stonehenge, or a particularly serene pond. When dozens of werewolves band together, we can conduct a ritual called the Rite of Cairn Building. Turn this place of power into a consecrated cairn, allowing the energy to expand and flow across an area ranging from a few meters to a few miles, depending on how successful the ritual was. Very importantly, the focal point where all that energy concentrates, it punches a hole between the spirit world and this one. That is the cairn's heart, the most sacred part of any cairn, filled with her essence. Depending on the nature of the cairn, the events that brought it to life, what emotions drive it, that essence can produce all kinds of amazing effects which occur naturally, or which we can tap into for an extra supernatural boost. The area around the heart, where its influence can be felt, is called the Bon. You'll feel that soon. It's about 200 meters east of here. She took all of that info dump in. So, it's a werewolf church. Got it. No, it's more than that, and you need to take that very seriously. The Garou in there aren't going to take kindly to a cavalier attitude towards the cairn. She recoiled at that. I know she didn't mean anything by it, but I could not sugarcoat it. Some folks would take offense to such comments. The werewolves who built the cairn, their descendants and many allies live inside the Bon in communities called septs. So it's more than a spiritual center like a church. It's home. It's where a lot of our loved ones live. Our spouses, parents, children, or siblings. For any Garou, there's a combination of that, or all of that, living here at all times. Cairns are the most important things in the entire world. We lose one, we lose ourselves. We lose everything. I'm sorry, she said earnestly. I get it, I think. It's quite all right. You didn't know. That's why I'm telling you all this, so you can learn. Now, we've covered a lot in little time. Do you have questions? Things you'd like to expand on? She thought about that. Meanwhile, Firehound's eyes, ears, and snout were taking in the environment, looking for Gloria, certainly, but also just in case I was wrong about the dancers not having the guts to follow this close to an entire sept of werewolves. Jane's answer snapped me back from such grim contemplations. You keep mentioning families, and things like you and me having the same natural form. That implies there are other options. A cute, whiny sound informed us that a question had also snapped Firehound out of his own grim contemplations. So we exchanged a look and switched places. He went to sit before her. His body language conveyed he meant it as a graceful demonstration of his poise and gait. A sort of silent, here's moi, child of the forest, born of the wilds, or something like that. I mean, he tried, poor boy, but his torn shoulder put a big damper on his would-be entrance. Word would have to convey what his limbs failed to do. Ask your questions, human child. I'll see that I answer each. He was answered by stunned silence. After an awkward few too many seconds, Jane just squealed. Oh my God! You're not just in Lupus. You're an actual wolf. This is your natural form. Correct, concurred the wolf. From my perspective, Hamid is the form furthest removed from my natural state. It is as difficult for me to reach it as you, Lupus, though I rarely, if ever, find a need for that form. Lupus, Ispo, and Krynos answer all of my needs. So that means the rules are reversed, right? The wolf did not follow. Who could blame him? Like regeneration, she clarified. I can't regenerate in Hamid or survive mortal wounds. You can, because for you, being a human is a supernatural state. Your mind is an odd place, child, already seeking to codify what does not need definition. Those are not rules. Rules are made, dictated, constructs from the minds of man to limit what they cannot otherwise control. Yet another way to expand their influence where it does not belong. What you describe is simply the way of things. But you are correct. I was born a wolf. Now I am more. I've gained much knowledge since my first change, and the capacity to reason far beyond my natural kin. Amaze. But wait, how does that work? The first change? That's what happened to me tonight, right? The wolf gave me a sideways glance of reproach. Like I had time to cover all the bases. Jeez. The first change can happen anytime after your body is complete, or near so, the wolf tried to explain, which wouldn't mean much to the girl, so I interjected. After puberty, for my position. Yes, that, I think. That's about 12 of your years, from what I've heard in the sept. For us, Lupus, it's a lot faster. Maturity happens between 1 and 2 years. We can have our first change any time after that. You were unfortunate to change so unexpectedly. Werewolves tend to keep a much closer eye on their wolfkin. When it was near my time, I was safely taken away from my pack and provoked until my anger brought the change. I kept an eye on Jane at that. I think she may have puzzled out what happened to her friends. If so, she didn't show it. Again, a mercy that we don't remember. Maybe a high school crush felt a lifetime ago after the night she'd had. Honestly, I don't know. Listen, Jane was damn resilient. Even back then. That's really all I can say. If she figured it out, she didn't want to dwell on it, choosing to focus on the other things she'd messed up while in the throes of frenzy. The thing that scared me. It was another one of those Fomori, right? Yes, said Firehound. You killed it. That is good. And impressive. Impressive? Jane asked. We were told to hurry, Firehound clarifies. That this kind of Fomori was quite dangerous. Oh, Jane pondered, then added. I think it was already wounded. And thus did the plot thicken. Black spiral dancers, Worm-tainted werewolves, like us Guy and Garou, live in communities of anything between 8 to 50, separated into smaller pack units of 2 to 8 individuals. What we call cairns, they corrupt into hives. Since the tribe came to be some 2,000 years ago, we have warred for control over these holy sites all over the world. The fact that 3 or 4 of them cooperated was pretty normal. They were a pack. That made complete sense. But they were operating pretty close to our sept, and that was a major cause for concern. It could just be a coincidence. Maybe a new pack, not affiliated with a hive, just causing trouble in a town they assume unprotected. But it could also be that they were scouts, sent by a hive we did not know about, emboldened by the backup of several more packs waiting in the wings. We just didn't know. But what role does the Fomori play? Like us, Black Sparrow dancers have kinfolks, much better suited to tasks involving engaging with humans directly. We often send ours into town to get jobs, ensuring a steady stream of money coming into the sept to secure weapons, food, and crafting materials for rituals, mystical knickknacks, and indeed keeping our buildings in shape. We all like a roof over our heads. Well, most of us. That means our kinfolk are also a great source of information and influence in the human world. In other words, Fomori aren't really needed by dancers. In fact, they could be downright disruptive and hard to control. So what role, if any, did they have in this play? If that big one was already wounded, as Jane said, it wasn't by any of us. Was there a falling out between the pack and another faction of servants of the worm? That could play to our advantage, but we needed to know more. Especially if there was a chance folks in town would be caught in the crosshairs. We had a lot of kinfolk there we needed to protect. Those were the thoughts crossing my mind when I finally saw Gloria casually walking towards us like it was just normal Friday evening, coming home after a good night of partying. Wholly unconcerned by the layer of blood, some of which most definitely her own, caked over her clothes. Jane had never seen Gloria in Homid form, but the fine silvery white hair of her glorious mane could belong to no one else. Jane, still in Lupus, stood up from her hindquarters she'd sat on while talking to Firehound. Making her way to Gloria, she slowly, step by step, shifted back to Krynos, towering over the Garou warrior. Gloria remained in Homid. She was not intimidated by the beast in the least. But she was surprised as hell when the giant war-form cub hugged her. I honestly don't think I've ever seen my packmate so disarmed, like utterly helpless. "Thanks," Jane said, through the guttural croaks of the warform's best effort at human words. "You got it, kid," replied Gloria, patting her reassuringly on the head. It's a weird image, seeing a frail human reassuring a monstrous 9-foot-tall murder beast. Well, I mean, Gloria's never frail, regardless of form, but you know what I mean. It stays with you, is what I mean. "Did you get my gift? I thought a Homid would like some decency after that ugly blue top. I didn't know what you would like, so I improvised. I hope you liked it." Jane beamed, like the thought of anything gifted by Gloria would be the highest quality gold. Horus has it? I couldn't put it on. I still had to shift. That's why I'm in Krynos now, because I don't really care to go any further back, but thank you so much. Right. That was rather dumb of me. I swear to God, Gloria was actually sheepish, but Jane had none of it. "Oh no, not at all. I can't wait to put it on," she said. "I really mean that. I'm quite sick of being... Well, wait, you said a Homid like me? You're Lupus too?" And just like that, way to burst the abscess. She didn't know. Couldn't have known. The temperature dropped several degrees. Gloria growled in her human throat, but swallowed back her anger. "No, I'm something else. She sighed. Might as well explain now. Come, while Horus attunes these new clothes for you. We settled in a spot a few paces closer to the sept, where we could sit away from the main path. I explained what was going to happen. What I'm about to do is called the Rite of Talisman Dedication. As a werewolf, you are a creature of multiple worlds. You're part human, part wolf, but also part physical and spiritual. I can bind these clothes to your spiritual connection. That way, they will shift with you. They will grow and shrink accordingly. You can also absorb them within your pelt in forms where clothes aren't practical, like Krynos, Hespo, and Lupus. That's how I'm going to set it up for you. Don't be surprised. The patterns on your pelt will change as a result. It's normal. The clothes are there. They'll just exist within your fur. I was going to say more. They call me Longstride for a reason, you know. But Gloria stopped me. She gets it. It's fine. She turned to Jane. Traditionally, what I am is called a metis. But I'm told that's a loaded term in some human communities, so lately folks have started using Garou-Born. I don't care. Just don't ever call me a mule. I will kill you. Get it? Jane did. She gulped. Wise kid. I'm the product of forbidden passion. Now you listen real close here, because few things anyone's ever going to tell you is this serious. Garou shall not mate with Garou. I'm going to say that one again, so you know I mean this. Garou shall not mate with Garou. You want to get funky with someone? You do that with a kinfolk. Can be human or wolf, male, female, that's your thing. No one has any right to choose that for you. But other werewolves are off limits. Gloria paused for dramatic effect. Those arrogant enough to believe their love is worth breaking an edict from Gaia herself produce offspring like me. Neither woman nor wolf, and sort of both. My natural form is Krynos. I was born in it. I clawed my way out of my mother's womb in it. We are not natural. We are not meant to be. And yet, inevitably, we are. Werewolves are passionate creatures. We revel in battle and love in equal measure. Don't get me wrong. I don't hate myself. I'm proud of who I am and of all of my deeds, and I will break any fool who dishes out hatred upon another Garou-Born. But that does not change the fact that the signs are very clear and obvious and undeniable. Creating one of us is a sin. It is wrong. It is a crime against Gaia herself. Another dramatic pause. I mean, what the hell can you even say after a bit like that? Thankfully, Lupus folks don't tend to follow social cues quite as well, so after a while, Firehound raised his head, which had been nestled in his crossed paws. Tell her the rules. She'll want to know that. How you regenerate. The what? Whatever. Okay. My natural form, insofar as I have one, is Krynos. But as I said, we aren't actually natural. For me, all that means is I can shift back to Krynos at will. It's the form I don't need to make an effort to keep. But I regenerate in all of my forms. And still, in all of my forms, my claws and fangs cause grievous injuries that even werewolves can't easily shake off. In other words, when you, Horus, and me are in Lupus form, if we bite another Garou, that's going to take hours to heal. If Firehound, a natural-born wolf, does the same, the wound will be gone within seconds. I know it's weird, but that's how it is, and we've no idea how else to explain it. So, said Jane, eager to take it all in. You regenerate, tank damage, and deal damage optimally in all forms, whereas we are limited in our natural breed forms. You have no weaknesses. That's pretty sweet. Oh, honey, no, Gloria replied. She seemed almost wounded, more so than any injury the Black Spiral Dancers ever could have visited upon her flesh. Read the room. This conversation is over. She stood up, instantly shifted back to her original form, and made her way back to the sept without another word. It was a tense moment. I am not ashamed to admit I lost track of where I was in the ritual and had to start over. Busy as I was doing so, Firehound stepped up to the plate. She'll be okay. So will you. Give her space today. The Garou-Born are marked by the worm. Or so most Garou believe. They all have one or more deformities. I've seen Garou with a third eye. Garou whose limbs don't match the forms they are in. Garou whose minds were broken from birth. That's very sad, Jane reflected. It is. There are those whose hatred of the worm extends to the Garou-Born. Theirs is not a life to be envied. Yet they stand side by side with us every day, fighting against our mother's enemies. They love her, same as us. Remember this, human child. Marked by the worm is not being of the worm, or having fallen to it. Finally done, and eager to change the subject, I handed Jane her new set of clothes. Alright then. Try to find your way back to Lupus. Don't worry, the clothes will be fine now. It's time to introduce you to the sept. This has been A Rite to Remember, Season 1, Episode 5, a series of lore videos for Werewolf the Apocalypse as it was prior to the upcoming 5th edition, presented through an ongoing narrative for an immersive perspective. And thus, we have now seen the 3 breeds of werewolves, Hamid, Lupus, and Garou-Born. On the subject of the latter, Firehound is presenting things in a rather optimistic light. His experience with the Garou-Born has been colored by his time spent with Gloria, who, long ago, decided to take a stand against any who would oppress members of her breed. I should mention that Garou-Born isn't an official term. It's just one that some content creators like me started using a while ago to avoid using the alternative. As far as I know, the term has been coined by Lore of the Apocalypse, who is awesome. If you're listening to this, I salute you. Gaian werewolves have historically been quite horrible to the Garou-Born. Nowadays, most tribes are backing them up, refusing to visit the sins of the fathers on the innocent child. After all, they need warriors and times are dire. Tribes like the Children of Gaia, the Bone Gnawers, and even the Get Offenders are quite welcoming to Garou-Born. But on the other side of the spectrum, there's the Fianna, who, even today, kill them outright with their parents. Other tribes fall somewhere in between, like the Silverfangs, who won't even admit to having them, keeping them hidden and away from sight. The problem is, the mistreatment of the Garou-Born is really playing in favor of the worm's hand. He's happy to recruit any fed-up Garou-Born into his own tribe, the Black Spiral Dancers. They may be evil bastards, but they don't care what breed you are. As long as you can help their cause and kill Gaian werewolves, you're welcome to the fold. I mean, if they don't sacrifice you first. Don't get me wrong. They use and abuse each other daily, but it's not because of their breeds, so I guess that's a plus. For more information on Lupus characters, I recommend the book Ways of the Wolf. It's outdated, but it's a good starting point. The long and short of it is that wolves tend to focus a lot on what's happening right now. For example, in combat, they tire quickly, going all out immediately without preserving their energy or rage for the next fight. Beyond that, I'd recommend reading up or watching documentaries on wolves themselves. A lot of what we believed was true about wolves when Werewolf was being designed has been disproven nowadays. you could also check out the tribe book Red Talon, a tribe who only welcomes Lupus. They can help you understand how a Lupus thinks, because that's the thing. Keep in mind that Lupus characters were wolves. They are that no longer. From the moment of their first change, Lupus characters gain a human-like capacity to reason. Their time as a wolf should always color their perspective and instruct their behavior, but they are by no means stupid or incapable of learning new tricks. One last thing, because it will come up. Lupus is a travel form, not Hispo, not Rhinos. Those two are too big and heavy. They may be strong, but they take a lot of energy to move around. When Garou needs to run somewhere far away, they drop to Lupus and go. The details change depending on the sources, but consider that wolves can run about 20 minutes before getting tired while trotting at about 8 kilometers per hour. On the hunt, they often travel 56 kilometers in a single day. For our American friends, that's a 5 mile per hour cruising speed and about 35 miles a day, on foot. For more information on Garou-Born, I recommend the book Guardians of the Cairn, whose last 55 pages are dedicated solely to the subject of the Garou-Born.